Now, remote Chime. Obviously, most of your problems are going to be on some server somewhere. Maybe if you're a developer, everything's locally, but if you're running into production, it's going to be on the server. Of course, you can always export the X display, but we know how painful that can be. So there's a nice little feature in Chime where you can do this remotely. Default port is 5088, but you'll probably need to change that because of some firewall rules, and it's pretty easy to do that. It utilizes the JMX, and just to warn you that there is no authentication with this, so just be careful with doing this in a production environment. And can you read this? Okay. It's just a matter of just some parameters. I'm not going to demo this because it would be kind of boring. Because it would just look like we just saw before, and I don't have a remote machine to really connect to anyway. Now this is the drilling down part. This is where I think it's where Chime gets really powerful. Everyone's familiar with the drill down technique, I assume. Start off big, keep narrowing down. Even if you never heard of that, you probably always do that anyway. So this is a really helpful tool. I'll show you the system calls, and we'll actually drill down on some things. So we'll start off on our system calls. Let's see what's the most active. Okay, xorg. I'll just sort by name, so it's not going to move around. Now we see a lot of extra options here. So we'll start off by function. And you can notice that this trace is still running while the functions are still going. But we can go down even further. We can even right-click on this function. Maybe we want to look at the threads, maybe. It's probably just one thread. Yeah, it's one thread running. But then, of course, we can even plot over time one of these. And also notice on this trace, we have the spark lines, which are pretty hard to read on this, but it kind of looks like an EKG at a hospital, so you can kind of see the health and what this is doing over time. So this is a convenient thing you can do rather than having to right click and everything. You can add the spark lines onto there. Any other questions about this or anything you'd like to take a look at?
Do you have any plans to do something like the heat maps and Fishworks? You know what I'm talking about?
We haven't planned anything, but I'll definitely add it to this. I'll let Tom know that. We'll work on that. Yeah.
So what's the actual overhead if I do this on a server? If I connect through the GUI to a server, I'm talking to the dtrace Java API on the server.
Right.
So all the display would happen on my local workstation. Would the overhead on a server be just the regular dtrace overhead, or a little bit more?
Probably a little bit more, not significantly more, but you'll have everything that Chime's doing. I don't think it's a whole lot more.
Because I find this very impressive, but if I have to fire up Java on my server just to instantiate those probes, of course it would distort the picture.
Yeah, you will be running Java on the server, but it will, I wouldn't say it's a lot, but it's not a little.
Okay.
So it's just, I think it's really going to depend on, you have to give it a shot.
So it'll probably influence things that get influenced by Java, but if I were, for example, to look at low-level driver activity or stuff that the kernel does, I would not affect it much.
Right. This is one area that was a problem for me with the OpenSlash.org website, because the issue was the CPU was pegged because we were running garbage collection so much. This really wasn't very practical. Plus, trying to get a port open. All of our servers are on the outside, and trying to open a port is kind of, you know how hard that is.
You don't really want to.
And then when you tell them I want some graphical tool, they'll freak out. So.
Okay.
So I wasn't able to use this on the production server, but it did help in development.
Is there any support for cryptographic authentication in JMX, which Chime could use if it will be implemented, or is it just missing on the JMX side?
I think it's missing just on the JMX side, but I don't know for sure. We'll have to take a look at that. That's one of the things, because we just work in our own time, and that's one of the things we like to add onto there. And I'll keep encouraging if anyone wants to get involved and help, especially like if they want the authentication. We're more than welcome to.
Always use an SSH tunnel.
And the remote Chime, is that just a single connection, or will it allow multiple connections?
It's a. I think it's
multiple connections from. You say there's no password or no authentication. So if it just allows a single connection and fire it up and I connect immediately, nobody else can get the connection.
You know, I haven't tried it, but I think it's just a single connection. But never thought about that because, yeah, I never really. I haven't played too much with the remote thing, but I'll find out about that. Okay, this is recording. You can probably, I probably don't have to explain this, but you probably can realize why recording might be helpful. You know, we saw how fast things were going with this. Sometimes you also might want to show something to somebody else because, you know, obviously, you know, I've run into issues where I have no idea what's going on because I run development builds on this laptop in my workstation, and it seems like they break something new every time. So I've actually used Chime to help figure out what was going on. I had a problem with VNC, and when I did a PR study, I had no idea where it was going, so I used the syscalls, kind of drilled down to see, oh, this is what's going. It's VNC causing the problem, and I could shut that off. I'll do a demo of this, show you it. Oh wait, first let me give you some warnings about, or some descriptions of this. We have two methods that we can record traces: object serialization and XML. If you're familiar with Java, you know why we have two forms. Because with object serialization, if you have a different version of a JDK, even if it's just a rev level, it's not going to work for you. So we have XML, but you're going to have a much bigger file. It's going to be much slower. So. We just go into options and recording. Just turn it on or off, or you just select which you want. And then any trace after that will be recorded. I'll actually play back one. This is the method times that I described before that actually brought my system to its knees. The reason why recording something like this would be good, this was the opensolaris.org, the old website, and if you really looked in this, you'll probably understand why we've replaced it with XWiki, but it was a big memory hog, and this is just the thing starting up, and it would take a long time, and there's obviously a lot of stuff going on. This, which you're probably going to see with any Java web application running running on Tomcat, but if any application server, it gets pretty complicated. And you notice I can actually pause and go through, and I actually have the clock time right here of what's going on. So we can, I can record one right now if you'd like to see it, but I think you probably get the idea, the point of that. And this was an object serialization. It was about 20 megs, all the recording. I think I recorded for as long as the thing would last, which was about 10 minutes. But I tried it with XML, and I think it was like about 10 times the size of that. So it was having enough trouble with the object serialization. So, but if you do much smaller things, the recording works great. Here's a kind of a random thing that I'll show you. There's a way of listing all the dtrace probes. Now, you probably know about dtrace, was it /L? Yeah. So here's a nice way of taking a look at it. You can hit this little button here with binoculars, or it's on the file menu on list probes. And you can search through probes through here. And there's a nice little drop downs. So even if you really don't want to use Chime for all the aggregation tools, but you're still a dtrace person, you might find this kind of convenient. And this is how I think it's all started, because Tom was doing the dtrace API, wanted to show a nice little interface to go through all this. So you might find this useful. Now this is the final part, adding your own trace. There's actually quite a bit of options available to do this, and I won't go into a whole lot of details with this because I'm not an expert at this, first of all, and plus it gets pretty complicated. And Tom asked me to tell you, he apologizes for some of the things he designed in this, especially when you get to drill down. But the good part is if you have a aggregation trace that does aggregation, you probably can import this without any changes at all. But you're definitely going to want to make changes to it to make it look better. Well, and I'll show you a little bit of this. There's a wizard to help you through this, so even though it can get complicated, I think the wizard will make things easier. And like I mentioned already, you can run traces from the command line, if as long as there's some simple things. So here's our command line example, which I'll run. It's just a simple trace. It would probably be just a couple lines in a file, which is going to give you some of the read characters from system info. So I'll demo that. Here's my one-liner script I wrote. And just see, there was where I was showing before. And it just pops up a trace window. So is this what you were kind of asking, if you can do some things on the fly? Okay, so yeah, you can, on the command line, and kind of do this. So this probably make it a lot easier than trying to do asterisks or @ symbols in your trace. You can do this. Now I'll show you the wizard. I will use this same trace right here. So you just go under File, New Trace. We'll give the trace a name. And we can also modify existing traces by clicking here. This is a great tool to learn how to add your own. You can see what things that Tom added. Click on this and take a look. We'll take a look at the system calls later, and you also get to see how you do drill down. So now I'm gonna load that. I'm going to load our one-liner that we had. You can see it right here, and we can check the compile. This is also some way that you can kind of use dtrace to play around with. Use Chime to play around with dtrace, because you can add your trace into here.
Will it show the errors if it doesn't compile successfully?
Let's see. Yeah, a little, yeah. We can clear all aggregations, or we can just add everything up over time. I think for our example, we'll just clear things, because if you don't clear it, you'll just keep your bar will keep getting longer and longer and longer. We want to look at the kind of the traces that we were doing before, so we'll clear them all. You can also just clear selected ones, but we only have one in this one. This is the section where you get into changing all your parameters for your columns. Just for our example, to show you how easy this is, I'm going to skip all these for now, but we'll go back to that. And then we can just go here to run the trace as our test. And it looks just the same. But you can probably notice, you probably can't see it, but that right up here, it's kind of ugly if at bytes. We went kind of on something a little more descriptive. So we're going to go back, and we're going to go here and we can change the name, change it to size. But that's not all we can do. This we don't want to change. This is some of the things we might want to do if we go to get fancier, add some more graphs, do some drill down in here. We would change this, but we'll leave that as it is. First, maybe I don't like blue. I want to make it red like my shirt. So I set it to the graph as red. But remember, we're doing bytes, and we'd like to be a little, something a little more descriptive. We like to use K, megs, and things like that. So I'm going to add the unit labels, and we already have that in by default, but you can change it to anything else you're measuring. We can also make this a hidden column for doing some of the things with the graphs. Like I said before, the best way to do is open some trace that you think is interesting, what you want to do, see what they did, and do that. It might not be real intuitive, but you click on the column, and then this is the first part of the wizard of specifying the column data, and the second is the properties. Okay, now we'll run this trace. And we can see now we have our things written in K. So I'll abuse the system right here and get something bigger on here. I'm going to just cat dev0 to dev null. This should, yeah, here we go. Now we got something in gigs right here. So I can see everything. It kind of grows automatically and sets that. Okay, now let's take a look at how you do drilling down. I won't go into too much details with this because I could probably do a whole presentation on this.
We have like 7 minutes left.
Okay, yes, I'll just show it to you, then I'll take any questions. So I just do new trace, and modify existing trace, and we'll do a browse. And this is the part that Tom apologizes for, because we're getting into a lot of question marks and things like that. He needed something that he knew that it wouldn't be considered a D-trace a character, so he did this, and this is how you add the drilling down that we saw before, and just things will keep substituting down into there. And we can take a look at we can see some things that we had the history that we had before with the graphs. And this is set up as an alternate view of the system calls per second. And then we can see where we have this set up as a spark line. Are there any questions on this? Okay. And this is pretty much the end. So this is where you can find some more information. There's our URL that I showed you before. So we have some things I recommend are the dynamic tracing guide. If you're new to D-Trace, but I think everyone here has some experience with that. I highly recommend these books here: the Solaris Performance and Tools book, and the companion book, the Solaris Internals, because you need to know what you're trying to trace. So I highly recommend these two books if you haven't read them already. So go ahead.